Welcome to the Northeast Iowa Crop Report here. I'm outside of West Union, Iowa today in a bean field again, just like last week. So want to talk this week about white mold. So white mold has been the #1 devastating disease that I've witnessed in soybeans. It can be absolutely catastrophic if we get a severe outbreak of white mold. This is not a severe outbreak, but it is noteworthy and I have been seeing it. So what white mold is, and how you can see it even driving down the road, is you'll start seeing dead plants. You can see this plant here is dead. This plant looks fine and senescing normal. And you can see on the top, it stopped putting pods on, and there's actually not even any beans in these. This one's fully potted up. And you can see this driving down the road. These beans will be dead. They'll have this brownish gray look. And if you pull it up out of the ground, it's in the more advanced stages right now, but you'll see actual physical white mold oftentimes. See that? It's pretty light here, but sometimes it's greater. And then the easiest thing, especially now that the season has progressed, if you split the stalks, inside these stalks, you'll find the sclerotia. You can see that as we open it up, some of it's already fallen out. But it's right there. Right there. Now, you see it even down here. As we look in here, it's those black things. It's called sclerotia. The common term is mouse droppings. You'll actually see this when you harvest. It'll be in the grain tank. Make a note of that. You even see it here. It'll infect the pods. The pods are kind of black. And look at those poor beans. Shriveled up. Shriveled up to nothing there in these infected plants. Earlier on in the season, as it's starting, you pull back the canopy, you can actually see the white mold coming up the plants. So, how do we deal with this? So the thing to think about with white mold is your classic disease triangle or a three-legged stool. So you have to have a pathogen present. So if we've been rotated, we're going to have the pathogen present here in Northeast Iowa. You have to have a susceptible host. All soybeans are susceptible. Some are more resistant than others, but they're all susceptible. And then the third and the most important is the right environment. So that's the three-legged stool or a triangle, the three sides of the disease triangle. So how do we mitigate that environment? First off, we can't change the weather. Optimum weather for white mold, cool, wet, during flowering and towards the end of flowering. So if you think about those late July into early August, or even mid-July, when we get those dewy mornings and it's cool, they feel great, and that fog settles in the valley, that's really when the white mold can get started. So that's the bad environment for weather-wise. The colder we get during flowering, the worse it is. And then row width. So 30-inch rows are better than narrow rows, 7.5 or 15-inch. This field is 15-inch rows. That is a contributing factor. This field in particular, one thing you can see is it's starting to lodge a little bit. Lodging also contributes to that environment. Poorer air movement, more ability for that mold to grow below the canopy. That's one thing that can lead to it as far as environment. Oh, and the other thing is population. So a higher population, the more canopy you get and less air movement moving through the field. So how do we manage it? Well, it's kind of those three things. Reduce our population, widen our row width, and plant resistant varieties. Incidentally, resistant varieties have a tendency to not lodge, and they also have a tendency to have a more upright, narrow growth to let more air movement go through. We've been very successful at mitigating and managing white mold through those three ways. I actually have a field that I've had very historic white mold issues in. We reduced the population, we went from narrow rows to wide rows, and we planted the best white mold tolerant soybean we could. and they have 0 white mold in that field this year. So it is manageable. There's nothing you could do to eradicate it completely. And that's what we can do to fight white mold. So that's the Northeast Iowa Crop Report here outside of West Union. Thanks a lot for watching, and next week we'll get in some corn.